You're on your knees and you're bent down low. You weed between the clouds.
Again, we thank you very much for making the trip. We don't take any of this stuff lightly. You know what I mean? So just make sure you wash your hands or whatever you got to do for your own, self. That we encourage you to do that. Right? We're not anti-encouraging nobody to do nothing. We're not going to stop living while we're still alive.
And again, let's go back to Winnie the Pooh. These are the wrong sort of bees, so I should think they should make the wrong sort of honey. So do you think that the commercial bees that have very high parasite counts and have problems with disease, do you think that their honey will be any different from the honey of the local bees that are disease resistant naturally? Yes, they will be. And one of the reasons is that just to keep these commercial bees going, you do have to medicate them.
He caught 86 swarms in the very first summer. Meaning, the reason there is more than one per swarm trap is that the moment he transferred them into a hive and put it up on a tree, he caught another swarm in the same box. So by June, after catching more than 100 swarms, he actually pulled the boxes from the trees because he was overwhelmed. Now, the swarms that he caught were expanding so quickly he was able to split them again, so he ended the season with 200 colonies, starting with 70 empty boxes. And actually now he's looking for a helper who wants to join his natural beekeeping operation in Kansas near Wichita, because he cannot do it on his own anymore. He has hundreds of thriving bee colonies and they want to multiply, so he knows that next year instead of 200 hives, he will break the 500 mark, because they're just, most beekeepers are struggling trying to keep their bees alive. He's trying to contain all of this expansion of the bees who keep multiplying and don't die on you and doing. So you should stop there, and I leave one full frame of honey here at the boundary, not as something they will consume during the winter, but as their safety reserve stockpile for the spring. They may not even touch it in the spring if the honey flow is good and the weather is good, but if it's rainy or too cold, they may need some of this additional honey to get going until plants start blooming and they can get fresh nectar. And if you leave too much in a horizontal hive in the fall, you can always pull it the following spring because they won't eat more than they really need for surviving.
And born and raised in Russia. I went to University of Missouri, Columbia for my doctorate in forestry, and after that we bought a homestead in the Ozarks in southern Missouri and started keeping bees. So in the old times the approach was just let the bees be bees, give them a good home, don't mess with them too much, and harvest honey once a year. This knowledge was so universal, I cannot explain why we forgot about the bee houses. Everybody knows about the bird houses, right? Everybody knows it's still part of the culture that if you put up the bird house, the birds will move in, but for whatever reason, the thing about the bee houses being put up in the tree to attract honeybees is pretty much forgotten.
That's another thing, if you guys are in the search, I'm going to deviate a little bit, but if you're in the search right now for your property or your homestead, that has to be something that you think about. You can't live debt-free on a minimal income like we do and then have all that problem. But we use most of that water for like washing dishes and for like making tea. If we make tea, we're not really even interested in it being filtered because we're going to purify it when we boil it. Okay? It's going to be clean when we boil it. We're going to use it in our tea. It's no problem. When we use the water for drinking, we use the 2-threaded filters and the carbon filter. Okay? Now I know people that use rainwater collection systems with 0 filters. All right? The Amish all do it. There's no problem. They've been fine, they're not dying, they don't have 3 eyes, their ears aren't falling off, everything's fine. So, no filters is fine, maybe, if you're paranoid. We've always had the 2-threaded filters and the carbon filter, and we recently added the Berkey because we've noticed a lot more chemtrails. You can talk about it or not talk about it, but there's still a lot more heavy metals in the air and in our atmosphere than we've ever had before. So we did get the Berkey set up now so we can take out all the heavy metals. 99.9% of bacteria, viruses, I mean, come on, all that stuff. Like, it's like the best water purification system. The only problem is, you guys cannot go buy one. They're all sold out. You know, that's back to stop waiting for these problems before you're getting your stuff situated.
I think we have a vaccine that we can do for ourselves because you utilize the things that our ancestors have used, and those things will help keep you safe.
We took a road trip, it's been a couple weeks ago now, maybe almost 3.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been 3 because it's Monday. It's Monday when we're recording this, and the second day of the conference on Monday, so it's probably been 3 weeks. We drove out to Hannibal, Missouri to go to the Homesteading Life Conference that Alfred with Doug and Stacy put on. This is maybe the 3rd or maybe 4th year, I'm not sure. This is the first year that we went. We really enjoyed it. Nathan was really excited to go to see Dr. Leo talk about beekeeping, and you went to all of the talks and lectures that he did.
Yeah, I recently started keeping bees the way he talks about, and I didn't have a whole lot of background in that. I just run with it, with his plans, and build a couple of hives, and so I thought it would be really beneficial to have the background on how to take care of bees more natural in the Layens hive.
This weekend we went out to just look at the bees, to check to see how much honey they had, and we had to, well, we made a mistake in the first couple times that we checked the bees, but we had no experience, and so their comb had fallen or started to fall out of the frames because it wasn't hard. So they tried to fix it, but in them fixing it, it created combs or frames that were stuck together, and just there was 6 or 7 frames that just they weren't right. So we ended up extracting all of those frames that were bad. I mean, the bees still could use them, but it made it difficult to check the bees. So I think if we hadn't, or you hadn't listened to all those talks with Dr. Leo, you would have been a lot more nervous about taking that many frames from them. But
we did it early enough that they should easily recover here in this area, and I know there's still plenty of stuff in bloom, so there should be plenty of honey for them still. I won't get back into the hives again this year. We'll just let them finish out the year.
In my opinion, I think Nathan going and listening to all the bee talks was well worth the price that we paid to go out there. I went to a couple of talks. I think her name's Maureen. Anyway, she's associated with the West Indian Prairie Foundation, and I went to a couple of her talks. Maybe I know 2, maybe 3. And one of them was about sourdough, which not recently. I guess it's been probably almost a year, at least 10 months since I started the sourdough. So I guess it is kind of recent, but a lot of people started it this year, and I had already started doing it, so it's not like super recent. But I had yet to make a decent presentable loaf of bread. I made stuff the loaves of bread that I had made before were edible, but they weren't. The presentation wasn't there, and so going to that sourdough class, I learned enough to get the courage to try again. And the loaves, they were a lot better. I made 3. They were a lot better than previous attempts. By no means am I an expert
Or even
bread maker.
are you going to try to teach on it?
No, I'm not gonna try teaching sourdough. Not yet anyway. I would like to, like, locally have like sourdough. Maybe not classes is the right word, but you know, like, I don't know. I would like to teach,
Support groups, maybe?
yeah, people locally how to do sourdough, because I really think it's a valuable piece of, history, or it's a valuable tool. I really enjoyed that sourdough class. Another talk that I really enjoyed, and I didn't get to listen to the whole thing. I came in toward, like, probably about halfway through or so. But Stacy was talking about herbs and different benefits of having certain plants in the garden. It was really focused on, like, basil, different types of basil, but she also talked about flowers, and I can't remember all the herbs off the top of my head. I have notes, but so I really enjoyed those listening to Stacy talk.
I listened to a talk by Doug on rainwater harvesting, and I thought that was really informative. It's something we'd really like to implement here because we only have hauled water storage. So if we could get away from having to haul that water and collect it with rainwater, it would make our lives simpler and cheaper.
Yeah.
And I would feel better about the water.
Because right now it's kind of dry, and the garden could use water, but I don't, it's a pros and cons thing, and so I try to water it sparsely, whereas I think if I was watering it every other day or whatever, it would be more bountiful. But so that is something that we would like to do. We need to put a new roof. We're gonna try starting on the garage, putting a new metal roof on the garage, and then start collecting the rainwater off of the garage first. So I think you got some confidence in that in how your ideas of how you might like to do that.
Why Swim in Botanicals, the Connie Jacoby from that, I think it said she was the owner. She gave a couple lectures that I thought were really informative.
One of them was on garlic.
Yeah, one of them was on garlic, and the other one was on viruses, funguses, and bacteria. And I thought both of those were really, really informative and gave you some very good natural ways to deal with some things that medicine isn't so good with dealing with. So
yeah, we really, if you can't tell, we really enjoyed going out there. We are considering going again next year. We just have to see if our schedule allows. But definitely, if you can get the time off work or take the time away from your farm or your animals, I think it's definitely worth the trip. Even if you have to come from California and drive for 3 days.
with kids.
Now, that was the longest trip out there was from, I think they were from Northern California, but it took 3 days with their kids. So even if you have to drive 3 days, it's worth it. We drove overnight, or in the afternoon and into the night. Yeah, that was an interesting experience too, but it was definitely worth it. I don't regret going or crashing it, not crashing, or getting to our tent site at 10:30 at night and just sleeping in the van because it was pitch black outside and we didn't want to set the tent up.
So we really enjoyed going to the conference, and we would definitely go again if we can arrange the opportunity to go again. We'll definitely go again.